Welcome to the Generation to Revelation podcast.
A boomer,
a Gen Xer,
and a millennial walk into a church to discuss relevant faith topics for today. Welcome back to the Generation to Revelation podcast, where we talk about faith topics for people today. We are going to be talking about ethics today, specifically Christian ethics. And I want to put Christian almost in parentheses, because who actually says what Christian ethics are? I think it should be Christ, but I think there's some things in the news right now that would probably have other places that it's coming from, but is labeled Christian. So let's start with that. What do we hear in the news when we think Christian ethics?
Oh, man.
in the news? Oh, boy.
What is Christian? Is it?
Well, and what is ethic? An ethic is a way that you live your life, right? And so
Right.
people tell you that if you're Christian, you should live your life this way, that you should believe these certain things, that you should maybe even regulate others for a particular moral way of living life.
Right. It's a
So it's
framework that you make decisions. And it's like, this is my ethic is because I think doing this, living this way is the good way to live.
Yes.
Right.
Right. And so then a Christian would say, well, I live by a Christian ethic. Like the way I decide what's good and what's right, what to do in my life, how to live my life is by my faith in Jesus I mean, that's what you're asking, right? Like,
Right.
because Christian, is it Christian because I go to this church? And so is there a Lutheran ethic and a Baptist ethic and a Catholic ethic? Mm-hmm. Is there a cultural Christian ethic, that doesn't really have anything to do with Jesus? Or is there a Jesus ethic? Like this is what Jesus taught. This is how he instructed us to live our lives.
Ooh, or you have the whole scriptures to play with. So you could pull from Old Testament, 10 Commandments, and
Or
Leviticus.
a biblical ethic, right?
Right.
And people, hear that all the time. Well, that's not biblical.
That's not biblical.
Right. So maybe that's a place to start, right? Like in the culture, as far as how Christianity is portrayed or people claiming Christianity, a lot of times they will use it in terms of like biblical. What's biblical? What's not biblical? Like that's their ethic. Of course, when you do that, there's a lot of things in the Bible that I would say are not the way we should live, right? Like I don't think we should be cutting off people's hands for, stealing or whatever. That I'm actually not sure if that's in the Bible. But
Well, eye for an eye.
Eye for an eye.
Eye for an eye.
tooth.
Pluck out your eye. I mean, Jesus said that, right? If your hand
yeah.
causes you to sin, cut it off.
Your own hand, not
Right.
somebody else's hand.
So we can extrapolate, start cutting off people's hands.
Well, that's where we get into moral regulation, right? Like I was told that if I do this, I should cut off my hand. So if you're not willing to cut off your hand, I should cut it off for you.
Right. Especially if I'm in charge, right? Like if I'm the ruler.
So if you have this idea that that I am morally regulating you, so if I've been told that I should cut off my hand if I do this thing and you're not willing to cut off your hand, I will cut off your hand for you.
Right.
But is that a Christian ethic to force our morals and ethics on someone else?
Yeah, that's the big question of today is like if we're a Christian nation in the United States, then we want Christian laws, right? Are we a theocracy? Are we like what do they call it in the Muslim world? When you have to follow
Sharia?
Sharia law, right? There's Sharia law in the Muslim world. Do we have the equivalent in the Christian world where we say, okay, we declare we're a Christian nation, that means we'll have Christian laws, and that means all of the Christian values are now going to be enforced by our police, right? And so if we think abortion is wrong, then we're going to enforce that, and we're going to make it illegal in the country, and people who do it, are going to be punished and going to be put in jail. If we think homosexuality is wrong because of our Christian ethic, then we're going to put homosexuals in jail, or we're going to outlaw same-sex marriage because we're a Christian nation. I mean, that's the conversation that's happening right now about ethics. Like, should Christians, and I guess I should say, not all Christians think that those things I just named are Christian ethics, but there are Christians who say those are bedrock Christian ethics,
Right.
and so we got to enforce those on other people.
Right. So that's our big topic for today.
Right.
Let's see if we can handle this in the next 45 minutes. What do we do as Christians if we agree or disagree with this? Is this something that we should be upholding? Is the ethic just your own personal take on life, or is it something cultural? Is it something institutional?
I think it's all those things. right? I think we have personal ethics. I think there all are cultural ethics and social ethics, and they're not all the same. And so that to me is, okay, what power, how are we going to use the power that we have and wherever we are to enforce whatever ethic we think is right? And that to me is, I just get so uncomfortable with the idea of abuse of power, whoever has power to force someone else to receive their ethic. That's where I struggle. And so that's where I get to, is it Christian to do that? Is enforcing morality a Christian ethic?
Well, I mean, these get to be such big questions. Because then it's like, can Christians be in politics? Can Christians be in government? Can you have a Christian police officer? Because now they're enforcing something. You know, can you have a Christian legislature? Because they're making laws about something, and they got to have a framework for where they make those laws. Or, I mean, part of my first instinct when you ask the question is, like, to have some humility to say, I think I know what the Christian right and wrong is, but I don't know, you know, like even something like do not murder. Well, that seems cut and dry. Don't murder.
Right.
What about if you're defending somebody? Is it okay to kill them then? Is that murder? Like
Right.
the whole Old Testament is filled with caveats and trying to figure out when you're breaking the law and when you're not. And then Jesus comes and reinterprets the whole thing. He says, you know, well, if you're even angry at somebody, you've committed murder. You know, if you lust
Yeah.
after a woman, you've committed adultery. And so are the punishments then from the Old Testament match what happens in my mind?
Yeah.
You know, and so like it gets just real tricky real fast if you're trying to enforce a morality on others. And Jesus didn't talk about doing that, right? Like,
In fact, an adulterous woman was brought before him, and he said, if you don't have sin, cast the first stone. Right, whoever doesn't have sin, go ahead. And
Right.
people were realizing, oh, yeah, we all do this, don't we? Just I might not be an adulterer, or maybe you are. There's one commentary that Jesus in the sand was writing all of their people that they had on the side, and Jesus is like, I know you, I know what you do. You think she's
Yeah.
no, you're equivalent.
I guess,
So-
so what's the relationship between a personal ethic and the laws of the land that are enforced by the sword, right? Because we do, like Lutheranism believes in the what is the left hand and the right hand of God, the two
Yeah.
kingdoms, the way
yeah.
that God, you know, interacts in the world. One through the system of laws, providing justice and punishing evil, and one through the church, you know, proclaiming the gospel and offering forgiveness and salvation, and he acts differently in those realms.
But God works through both realms.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I love preaching on the 10 Commandments because people are like, oh, yeah, well, half of these just make sense. They've been in our laws forever. And I was like, here's the funny thing. They had to be put into law because they weren't laws before. People were just doing these things. And then it like, what? Like, they're like, what? People were just murdering. People were just stealing. People were just lying. Yeah. People were just doing these things. And so God put down the 10 Commandments as kind of our first rule book. And then we still don't always follow all of them, right? The first 3 are about our relationship with God, and we break those all the time. Sabbath, and don't use God's name in vain, and no
other
idols,
gods.
no
Yeah.
other gods. And
Well, and
so,
all of the most controversial things, and I've named them some already, are because we're not sure what's right.
right?
Right? We're not sure what the Christian ethic is. Christians are arguing with each other about these. Like some things, well, even the things we think we know, like, is it okay to lend money for interest with interest? You know,
Yeah,
like
Levitical law, yep.
like if you're going biblical, then no, you can't do that. You know?
Right, no interest.
No interest, but none of us follow that. Like I want interest on the money I give to my bank, and you know they can lend it out at more interest. Like it's, I don't know. Like I'm going down this like deep dark path where like nobody does anything good ever. You know, which is kind of what Paul said anyway.
Right. But some of the stuff that we've talked about, you know, like previously, last season, check out last season's podcasts. But the idea of like literalism and interpretation of scripture, and is it inerrant, and what does that mean for how we interpret it? And a lot of the ethic goes back to how literally are you taking it? How are you applying it to your own morality, policing it on others' morality?
Right. And nobody takes it literally. Even
They
people
think
who
they do.
Even people who
Yeah.
say they do, they don't
They
take it
don't.
literally.
They don't.
Because they are making decisions about this and that, and But I think that's what we're supposed to do, really. I think we're supposed to make decisions about what we think is right and wrong. And Jesus said it. He said, what you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. What you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. And one interpretation of that is to say that you guys decide on, what's right and wrong. You decide what we're going to say is, what the law says and what we're going to say that doesn't apply. And that's what I was getting to with the Old Testament when, if your donkey breaks out of its cage and tramples the neighbor and kills them, like what wrong was committed and what's the penalty, right? And we have to decide those things. Those aren't handed down from heaven as this is murder and you should be murdered. There's, we set up systems and laws and judges and lawyers, and we make these decisions as a community. And I think that's probably how God intended it. He gave us a framework of the Ten Commandments. He gave us the person of Jesus. And then he says, all right, now work it out. Based on these things, work it out. Because there's, what do we do with AI now and all the ethical questions that are going to come from that? That's not in the Bible. There's not a commandment about whether using AI to help you write a sermon is lying or not. Yeah. Like, are you bearing false witness at that point? Or are you using good technology to help your people at that point? Like, someone's got to decide that. What's the ethical thing there? And so, anyway, I'm ranting.
Well, it's because it's a big topic, right?
It is.
It's a big topic.
It is. Well, this particular theme this week is coming from actual responses from our season 1, is people, saying, are you going to talk about what Christians are supposed to just do in the world? Like how we're supposed to act, how are we supposed to respond? What do we do when other Christians say things that we don't agree with or we don't stand by and they want to make a law about it, like you were kind of saying.
Right.
And so this is coming out of season 1 and people responding and feeding back to us. So season 2, here we are. We're trying to answer your question.
Answer? Can't we just keep asking the question and like making people curious? And
right.
I mean, that's how we keep our jobs, right? We keep this podcast going. I mean, I do think there are like answers or at least frameworks. Like I said, 10 Commandments, Jesus. And for me, it's Jesus. You start with Jesus. You say,
always.
What did Jesus teach? And how does his teaching inform our ethics? What I think's right and wrong and how I behave. And for Jesus, like a lot of what he taught was love your neighbor as yourself, right? And so that's a good, maybe the best starting place for deciding what's right and wrong. Is this showing love to my neighbor?
Right.
Right. I think that helps me make lots of different decisions in life.
Right.
Starting with what's good for my neighbor. How does does this help my neighbor thrive?
Well, right. I mean, this comes out of that Jesus being asked, what is the greatest law? Tell us, which one should we follow the best? And he's like, I'm going to distill it all for you. Love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And I actually teach my teenagers that you really have to have the first one to be able to do the second one. If you love God, then you can see God that you love in your neighbor, in the image of God, that there they are. Because it's really hard to love your neighbor, especially if they're doing something you don't like. That's where ethics come in, right? Like, will I make a good decision? And if you're looking at your neighbor and you're just seeing this like the other, then...
Well, right, because that's the caveat. Well, then who's my neighbor? If I got to love him, who is it?
Right.
And then Jesus like tells a whole story to say basically everybody. Like,
right.
Oh, crap.
Yeah. The Good Samaritan, guys. That was the answer to that question. Who's my neighbor?
Right. It's the person who's the enemy who does good for the enemy.
Right. The person that was not supposedly close to God. He wasn't the priest. He wasn't the, law-abiding citizen. Yeah. He was instead the person that was outside, the outcast. He was the one that treated his neighbor properly, took care of him, made sure that he got fixed up after he was beaten and robbed.
And if love your neighbor is your ethic, is the beginning of Christian ethics, then it's not black and white, and it changes in different scenarios, right? Like it is always wrong to give your money away or keep your money for yourself or whatever. You can't, it's not like the whole murder thing. It's always wrong to kill. Like that's not true, right? Sometimes it's right to kill, if it's in defense of somebody in need, and then you're loving your neighbor by doing that. So it's
Right. One neighbor dies, but one neighbor survives.
Right,
It's a
I
hard,
know.
it's a hard one.
but I think some people would like, just give me the list.
Yeah.
And codify it all black and white so I always know if I'm right or wrong. But if your ethic is love your neighbor, you don't have a list. You just have that situation, that neighbor.
Right.
And you have a decision to make about what it looks like to love them
Right.
there.
Right.
And that might look like one thing in one instance, and it might be the opposite in a different set of circumstances. And I think that's very uncomfortable for people because they want laws.
Oh, yeah.
And they want to make it very clear because that puts it back on us, right? And I think that's what we try to resist all the time is we don't want to actually be responsible. We want to put the responsibility on the law. The law says, and so I just did it.
Yep. Yeah.
Like I was having a conversation with a soldier who was, patrolling the border, and he was saying, luckily for me, everybody who came across illegally was like a military-aged male, and so I didn't feel bad about, he didn't tell me what he did to them. I had no idea, but he said that wasn't the same for some of my buddies in different parts of the border where it was women and children coming across, and what's right in that situation? Is it the
Right.
same as what was in my situation? Like, it's
Right.
just loving your neighbor is a harder way to live your life because it requires you to do the work, do the discernment, be in relationship with God, and
Right.
figure it out. And you don't get to just say, well, I'm just doing my job, or I'm just obeying the law, or
Right.
just following the commandments, right?
Right, and then where is it the Christian ethic to push back against the law? If there is
Right.
a law that is not loving toward the neighbor,
Right.
how do we push back against those? And so that's why it is good to have Christians in politics and
Yeah.
in all of those kinds of things.
Well, I think of like the immigration stuff that's going on in
Yeah.
our country right now, right? Like people are crossing the border illegally, coming to our country illegally. And then now ICE is being empowered by the administration to go and find those people and deport them. And people say, well, they broke the law, and so you got to follow the law and deport them, right? That's the easy answer. But who's asking, why is that the law? Is that a Christian law? Is that a
Right.
loving your neighbor law? Does that have anything to do with God, those laws that we've set up,
Right.
right? Because we want to make it simple so that
Right.
we can escape the responsibility of being moral people in the world
Yeah.
who take real other neighbors, take their lives seriously and what loving them looks like seriously.
Right. I think it does. It comes down to there is some subjectivism to it. Like if I'm meeting an immigrant who's come here from a war-torn country and they're running from their lives, like illegally is the only way to do it. They don't have the money. They don't have any connections to the U.S. They don't have any of the ways that would naturally be able to get you into the U.S. legally. And so they're doing it. And so, yes, your Christian ethic is like, I want to provide you a safe place. Like, please come. And then you do have the rhetoric that's out in the administration right now of like, they're all drug traffickers. Like, they're all going to bring criminalized activity into our country. And there are going to be some immigrants that are going to come with ill intentions, and they're going to bring things that profit themselves and not the country that we love.
Right. So that's the situation, right?
Right.
Like if you find someone who's, trafficking people, yes, arrest them, deport them, get rid
Human
of them.
traffickers out, please. Right.
If you find someone who's running for their lives to protect their family, do you do the same thing?
Right.
That doesn't seem right.
Right.
But
Well,
some people, some Christian people will say, yes, it is. That's the law. They have to follow the law. Everybody does.
Right.
But
gotta
I
go
think
through the
I
right
think when they
things.
do that, they're turning off the love in their heart. They're
Right.
they're hardening their heart because it makes it simpler. Because it's it's not simple, and it's complicated, and
Yeah.
people's lives are messy, and it's hard to love
Right.
because it's just not cut and dry. It's not easy.
Right.
And we want easy. We want to
Right.
conserve calories in our brain. So we just want
We want to
simple
have to make a
answers.
decision every single time we meet someone. Goodness. I'm willing to go there to the abortion issue because I think it's a similar take. There's some like the rhetoric is that there's people that are using it as birth control and they're killing children in their wombs. And there's also like when you make a law that says this absolutely cannot happen, then you have women who are just miscarrying and their bodies are actually not able to expel the baby completely. And now they're in a state that doesn't allow a D&C to happen, that procedure, because that procedure is what is not allowed. And so now this woman is going to die because the miscarriage didn't
Because
allow
we're
to
trying,
miscarriage.
right, we're trying to rule a very complicated situation with a law.
With a law
And
that
a
is
law
super cut and dry.
A law is not the answer to everything.
Right. And so people get hurt, and you want to just care and love for people. And I can't, there's so many doctors out there that are like, I saw this woman, but I'm in a state that I can't allow this to happen. And so my hands are tied by the law, but I have been told to heal. And I want to be able to help this woman who is miscarrying and is suffering and will likely die from this. And that's just heartbreaking to hear.
And I think that's the line. When do you trust people and when do you not trust people, right? The law is because
Right.
you don't trust people, and so you make a law to force them to do stuff.
Right. You don't trust doctors to actually make that decision themselves properly. And so
Right.
you make a law for them.
And so you make a law that then is just can't handle every instance, right?
Right.
Rather than give moral authority to people and trust them. And that's, like, there's situations where I don't really want to trust people, right? But
Right.
I think there's lots of situations where we should probably trust people more.
Right. There's a reason that lying is in the 10 Commandments. People do it all the time. And so that's the other thing. You could have someone in front of you that tells you this whole story and it's all fake. But your Christian love is like, oh, but if that story is true, I will absolutely help you. I will absolutely be there for you. I will absolutely do everything that I can. I'll be the good Samaritan for you. Oh, wait, you're lying to me and deceiving me. Ugh. Sin in the world, guys. What to do with ethics with sin is rampant in the world.
Right. Yeah, I think it's that personal ethic. Like, I feel more comfortable there because I know kind of how I want to live my life and make decisions. I think it's just really hard when you try to nationalize that or legislate that. But I think you're right. I think Christians should be in those positions of both enforcing laws, being soldiers, defending country, making laws, writing the laws. But it's just got to be done with a lot of humility and a lot of love and just a recognition that people need space to make decisions that laws can't anticipate.
Well, that's the hard part, right? Because I think having come from a really conservative world, and now I've moved, I'm not, I'm more in the middle, but love in that world looks like we don't want you to get hurt, so we will keep you from doing something we think will hurt you, but that just ends up trying to legislate morality. So a lot of it depends on how you define love and what does that look like, and so to try to go back to the abortion issue, you want to protect the innocent. Well, love protects the innocent. The babies are the ones that are innocent, so we have to put this rigid law to protect that. But that it's short-sighted. And so I guess that's my question. How do you bring a Christian ethic that loves well, that doesn't enforce what I think is right, but is still healthy? And there are no answers. I'm real quiet in this one because I don't have a lot to say. I don't. It's just so hard for me. So much of the change came in my own life when I was willing to open my hands and say, I don't get to make that decision for someone else. I don't get to do that.
Right.
I get to love them.
Right.
And so, this one's a tough one for me. So I'm sitting here watching y'all going,
But, I think God invites us to be moral deliberators and to do it in community, that it's not by fiat. It's not, put one person in charge and they set all the rules. Although when Jesus comes and is in charge, then all the laws will be perfect, right? And they will. But even then, I don't think it'll be it's not like Jesus is going to come write a new constitution. He will be the law.
He is, yeah.
He will be the one that you go before, and he will be the one who decides that's wrong, that's right, that's wrong, that's right. And he'll always be right because he'll always be perfectly loving, perfectly wise, perfectly just. And we're in the middle trying to do our best to be loving and just and protect the innocent, even when there's multiple innocent rights or desires or needs at stake, right, that are conflicting. That's the abortion issue is so controversial because you have the baby in the womb who deserves protection, in my mind, and the woman whose womb it is who deserves protection.
Yep.
And when those two two lives when they're trying to protect them conflict, like, I don't think a law is the way that solves that problem. I think
Right.
that's why people talk about, the doctor and the mother making that decision together. And it's just that when we don't like that decision, we want to put a law to force everybody to do it the way we want it to be
Right,
done.
right. So that's the question. And maybe another topic, I mean, they're all kind of the same. We talk around the ethic part of it, but like unhoused people. And how do we approach that, loving our neighbor, when those are so varied? Like if there's a true mental illness involved, just trying to put that person into housing is not going to
No.
help. But if it's someone who's hit a couple of months of really bad luck, lost their job, couldn't pay their bills, and is on the street, then maybe just putting them into a housing situation will work.
Right.
So,
So before this podcast recorded, I had a member of our congregation who just became homeless come and ask for help, right? And I kind of quizzed him, like, what's going on in your life? What's that? What's it look like? Where are you living tonight? He's like, well, I'm living in my van. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm like thinking of all the issues in Colorado Springs of, are they people allowing, I can't remember the details of it, but there was issues about, can, churches open their parking lots for people living in their cars to stay in their car? How long can a car be parked? Can you live in your car downtown? And I'm like, what's this guy doing? Is he going to get in trouble here? And what would be the right law for a guy like that? And he's like, so he told me, he's like, I'm living in my van, but my friend's letting me park my van in his driveway. And so I figure he's safe, but like what's the Christian law for protecting the viability of businesses downtown, protecting the rights of individuals who may be down on their luck, or have a mental illness and can't get a job.
Right.
Like it goes back to like the Garden of Eden and like knowing good and evil, and like we don't know. We took that fruit or that ability to decide good and evil, and then we're just messing it up left and right all the time. And just maybe getting close sometimes, but it's always got to be a work in progress, and we need to always be correcting ourselves too when like we're getting it wrong. We need which is why I think our constitutional democracy is the best, in that it understands that, right? Checks and balances, and you can change the Constitution, and you can change the laws, and it's a discerning community recognizing we're not perfect, we're on our way, and so we need to have within the system a self-correcting ability.
Right.
Which all seems to be falling apart.
Right, but it's almost, so to talk about unhoused, and here in Colorado Springs, I mean, the government is trying to go out and figure out why they're unhoused. And I think that is truly like the best first step, is to figure out what the neighbor needs and meet the need. And so if it is, I just can't afford rent here. Okay, we need better affordable housing for you to be able to actually afford something here, because it's like, I actually have money in a bank. I just can't possibly.
Right. I might have a job. I'm
Right.
full-time with benefits, and it's still
Right.
not enough to pay for a house.
Right. Or it could be, we have a drug problem on our streets, and all of these people are addicted, and every dollar that they panhandle goes right into their addiction. In which case, the need that we need to meet is this criminalized drug behavior that's happening in our city, right? Like, so they need to start with figuring out what the need is in the unhoused community to figure out what needs to be offered. Because yes, if you put someone who is mentally ill, addicted, even if you put them in a hotel room for the night, they could trash the hotel room and be like right back on the streets the next day. Like, right? Like, you don't know what will, like, that, you think you know what will help them, but you don't until you talk to your neighbor and love your neighbor enough to be uncomfortable in front of them.
So I am going to jump in here because you
Please
said
do.
something crucially important. Which
Did
is,
I?
Yes. You do that, more regularly than you might think.
I'm surprised, honestly. Okay, go ahead.
But it's this idea of why. Why is this a situation?
Right.
And you mentioned it even with the border. Why is the person coming? Are they coming to
Right.
to do drugs, or are they coming because they're fleeing violence?
Right.
And ethics, when you talked about the law, we want a law to govern everything because the law frees us from having to think about the why. And maybe that's what you're saying, and I just got it. But to me, the why is so important. So how do we bring a Christian ethic to that question of why? Because to me, I mean, I've known people with a legalistic framework. The why doesn't matter. I had someone say to me once that God doesn't care why anybody does anything. If they break the law, they go to hell.
Interesting.
And thinking that that is the right way to be, right? And so, but I think God does care about the why. If God didn't care about the why, Jesus would have never come.
What's the whole New Testament about against legalism, right? Like they're all
Only of the effects matter. That is like mind blowing to me that the cause
No.
makes no case. Only the effects matter. Only the like final product.
That's what was
Intriguing.
said to me once when I talked about, well, why would the person do that? It doesn't matter. They just disobeyed.
I mean, we're like Jesus' harshest words were against the Pharisees.
Yeah.
And who were the Pharisees? They were people who knew the law of the Old Testament, and like we always think of that as just religious law. It's not. It's civil law. It's everything. Like it's the same as our laws about what's right and wrong and who gets punished for what. Like that was the law. And they knew the law. It's just that they didn't have a separation of church and state. Like it was religious law, civil law was all the same. So the Pharisees knew the law and enforced the law and told people you're breaking the law and you're in and out as a result. And those are the ones Jesus came after. Like Jesus says, you're putting a burden on people that you don't even follow yourselves. And he taught a different way that was a way of grace and a way of forgiveness and radical inclusivity and accepting people even when they did break the law, even when they were the Gentile or the outsider or the unclean, right? That his whole ministry was going against legalism and people who want to solve the world by a set of laws, right? And introducing a relationship instead, a relationship of grace that it's people oriented, neighbor oriented, and so that's a harder way to be people who say, who's my neighbor? Okay, if they're my neighbor, I need to know them. I need to understand the whys behind everything, and then I need to love them. And what does love look like in this case? And that takes a moral community deliberating together who have a shared value of loving the neighbor. And then, we're always going to be figuring it out.
Right. Yeah, one of the passages that always have been hard for me is Peter asking, okay, well, how many times should I forgive my person that has offended me?
Quantify it for
Right,
me.
quantify it for me. And I'm like, oh man, Peter, you and I, right? I want to know exactly how many times before, like, I'm not a doormat anymore. I can just say no. And so let's talk about like Christian boundaries, because I think that sometimes we put out this Christian ethic and we say, turn the other cheek, walk another mile for them, forgive them 70 times 7 times, which is really not 77 times. Like, right. It's supposed to be just infinitely forgive them. Like,
There's no limit. We
Right,
always
there's
want
no
to know
limit.
what the limits are.
are Christians just doormats then? Are we just going to continue to get beat up by this world because we're not willing to hold boundaries?
Maybe.
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 I have given that sermon.
But to me, this is a thing to maybe differentiate. Maybe I'm just trying to parse it too closely. But for Christians to be doormats to the world, I think could be a solid yes. But for a personal Christian to be a doormat to another person, that I'm not willing to say yes to.
Right. I mean, it's hard because Jesus submitted to crucifixion.
Right.
And he's our example, right?
Right.
Like are we supposed, like, when are we supposed to be crucified and when are we supposed to fight back and when are we just supposed to remove ourselves from the situation and protect ourselves from being crucified? Like,
Right.
I don't know all the answers to that. But I think it's always a possibility that we're supposed to be crucified. And as uncomfortable as it is saying that,
Yeah.
I think that's always, if we are followers of Jesus who put his life on the line to do what God was asking him to do, to proclaim a message, then we might have to do that too.
Right. We might get taken advantage of.
And we might get taken advantage of, which we are going to get taken advantage of, right? Like,
Right.
We're called
We're
to be
graceful. We're
we're
merciful.
called
We're
to be
loving.
generous. We're going to give money to the person who then goes and buys liquor with it, right?
Yeah.
That's part of being Jesus followers is it doesn't mean you get to be safe all the time.
Yeah. I love giving money to panhandlers with teenagers in my van because they're just like, you don't know what they're going to do with it. And I said, exactly, but I know that I gave them money.
Yeah.
I had money. I I rarely hold cash, but if I have cash, I will pass it.
I never give money to
Well, but you each get to make that choice.
Right, you
Right.
do.
Each get to make that choice. And again, like the legalistic person, I don't want to contribute to their harm. It's not loving for me to give them money that
Ooh,
will
yes,
contribute to their
yes,
harm.
yes.
So that's where some of that, this is where ethics come in, right?
Right.
That is their ethic. The other, so everyone gets to make that decision for
Yep.
themselves. Community laws, different ball game. But I will
Right.
say,
Community laws are like no panhandler should be in our city at all. So you got to get them out.
Right, and sometimes they make laws that say there are good charities to give money to. That's going to be more helpful. We've discerned this as a community because I think the other side is this: you don't want to be like Christians are not law-abiding citizens, right? Like
Right.
I think law matters and is good, and when it's done right, like laws can make life better for our neighbor, and
Yeah.
and we should advocate for those, and we should obey those. But we're not legalistic in that we think the law is always the right thing.
Right.
Right. It's maybe the best thing we know now, and we have to, if we see a flaw in it, then we work to change it. But
Right.
and we also never just check our brain at the door and say, blind obedience to the law no matter what, because I don't think that's the way of love either. But there's really good laws that, like you can't enslave somebody. That's a good law. We should obey that law, and people fought hard to make that law a law, right?
Right. Everyone gets a
to
vote.
protect our neighbor. Everyone gets a vote, right? Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, like these
Right.
laws matter, and are discerned by a community, and they need to be tweaked at times to make sure they're right, or they're still helpful to everybody. But the law can be very good, but we don't. But it's a tool, It's not the end.
right, it's a framework, it's a guideline, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. And so we have to have humility to be able to address laws that might need to be changed. But circling back to the boundary thing,
Yes, please.
Say it again?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I
I
feel like
just-
we haven't. I get that question all the time. I'm supposed to just be I'm just gonna get taken advantage of if I'm a Christian. If I'm a good Christian, people are just gonna walk all over me. I'm never gonna get anywhere in life because people are just gonna step all over me. Is that true? I don't think that's true.
Can I say no to somebody?
Right. If I'm being abused in a relationship, should I just sit there?
But that's not serving God.
No, it is
or
not.
loving neighbor,
Or loving neighbor or any of that. And so no, it is good to have boundaries. Boundaries can be loving toward the other person. And that might be the way to look at it. Is this serving me or is this serving them? Is this somehow serving both of us? Is this not serving anyone? But yes, because I will till the day I die. If a question comes up, it's a person being abused. Should I stay in the relationship because I need to submit or God wants me to do that? The question is no, do not stay.
No.
should I forgive them,
Absolutely.
but still don't stay?
Correct.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right. I get that a lot as teenagers too. They're like, I'll forgive, but I won't forget. And I'm like, okay, but then you're still harboring this
And
thing
you're
for
harming
them.
yourself. I mean, that's the whole
You
point
are.
of
You're
forgiveness.
harming yourself if you're not truly willing to. I don't know, but forget. Like I think the forgetting thing is intriguing because it's like I don't know. Are you forgetting as in like I'm just gonna we're gonna walk away from this and that's my way of forgetting, or if I'm gonna I'm never gonna forget and I'm gonna hold on to it and harbor it in my heart.
Holding a grudge, if they
Holding a
mean by
grudge.
not forgetting to hold on to a grudge,
Yeah.
like where they want the person to come to harm, then yes, you can talk to that. But to not forget, I think, can be wise.
Yes.
When there's no grudge involved, you can forgive and remember the harm that was done and choose to not participate. Forgetting doesn't mean you act like it never happened.
There's
Yeah.
something here about power and who
Absolutely.
has the power.
Absolutely.
Because it seems like if you have the power, then forgiving and giving second chances and stuff makes some more sense. But if you're the powerless one who's being taken advantage of and abused, and you don't actually have agency, I think we've moved out of the realm of the
Yeah.
ethical responsibility, or
Right.
like it's something else is going on there.
You're back to survival. I want you to survive. God wants you to survive.
Right.
So-
And it's love for self too.
Yeah.
Right. And God always prefers the weak, the underdog, the
Yeah.
abused, the powerless, right? Like God has preference for them.
Yeah. I've been reading Genesis 2 as well.
Really?
And I'm in the Hagar section right now, and I'm just like, man, God really sees Hagar. Like, she was not treated well in the whole Abraham-Sarah debacle, but God sees her, and Ishmael is chosen and taken in, and God takes care of those people that are discarded. And so I loved that. That was my scripture today.
That marginalized, powerless woman gave God one of his 8 names.
El Roy.
El Roy, the God who sees me.
And so God sees you even if you feel like you're the doormat. No, you're not. God sees you. But hold your boundaries. That's your ethic.
Well, she was powerless. She couldn't,
Right,
So,
right.
but the ethic, yeah.
Yeah.
And for us to see those people.
Yeah. Right. There's a whole we could just like take that as like a test case. Like, where is the ethic in Abraham and Sarah and Hagar? Because Hagar is supposedly mean to Sarah, but then runs away when Sarah kind of rebukes her and harms her, and so yeah, you could look at you could be like, Abraham, what were you doing? Like, so,
Well, that's that. Do the ends justify the means, right?
Right.
If the,
oh, that's a good ethic conversation. Do the ends justify the means?
And appropriate in a
Yes.
certain South American country.
Yes.
are we talking about Venezuela?
Ooh, yeah, that one. Did the ends
Well,
justify
let's-
the means?
That just happened recently within our filming of the podcast
Right. So like,
in the last week.
right. I don't know when this podcast will come out, but this is all real fresh. In the United States went into Venezuela and captured the
Their president.
president, who we say stole the election, was involved in drug trafficking, and so the official administration line is that it was a law enforcement action, and we've extradited him to the United States and he and his wife, and are putting them on trial.
Right.
And the question is, and they're in court now, so it'll be decided in court, was that the right thing to do? Was that the ethical thing to do? Was it the legal thing to do? And there's kind of two minds on it, or two debates. There's one, maybe it was illegal to go into a foreign country and extract a leader. That might have violated laws, but to go and arrest somebody who's stolen an election and is sending drugs to the United States and hurting our people,
Possibly hurting their own people. Yeah.
is the right thing to do. And so it's like this conflict of
Right.
right and wrong.
Yeah, so to me, the question is framed in the people in Venezuela who feel now a sense of freedom and who are rejoicing.
Right.
Is that worth potentially violating national law, potentially doing other things, and killing innocent people, right? I think some innocents were killed in some of the bombings,
Yeah.
some of the citizens and stuff. So did the ends there justify the means? What does our ethic say? It's
Well, then
messy.
It
It's
is messy.
very messy.
And we do have we have just war theory, that kind of
yeah.
helps us think through. Although people would say, "Oh, it's not war; it's law enforcement or whatever." But there is just war theory does kind of go through those criteria of when it's okay to wage war, and part of it is protecting innocence and have the actual ability to be successful. And I don't have my just war theory at the tip of my
Oh, don't worry. We'll do another episode where we just talk about Christianity and violence and our lovely history of it. When it comes to ethics, one of the things that also was coming to me when I was considering this podcast theme is that I've been sitting in front of some young adults at a local college, and it does feel like moral relativism comes in. Like, you can't tell me what to do. I decide my own life, this very individualist idea. And the church as an institution should not tell me how to live my life. Do you think that there is something to be said for Christians should be acting some way, and it's a way that would actually benefit you and benefit others, even if it does feel like it impugns on your personal...
Should we lift up a standard
Right. Should we lift up a standard?
and say this is what
Lori's got a face.
generally is right?
Is the camera on Lori? Because Lori has a face.
Lifting up a standard is one thing. Beating people over the head with that standard is a whole nother thing.
Okay.
That's a Texasism. It's a whole nother. So lifting up a standard, no question, no problem with saying, yes, we hold these things up as healthy. I like to frame stuff as healthy. Is this healthy or is it unhealthy? But to beat other people over the head with it, that's a different ballgame.
Okay, so a church that instills this and says this is how you should act versus this is how Christ calls us to act, and I would challenge you to do the same.
I don't know.
Is
So
that the
I
difference?
put on Facebook this statement about like people are only going to church like less than 2 times on average per month, and like immediately got hammered by like
You don't know.
you're hammering people over the head with this standard of going to church more, right? Like you can't tell people to go to church more.
Yep.
Like they're going to
Yep.
be offended by that, and how do you know if they're going to church enough or living out their spiritual life? I'm like, dang. So like, it's,
I just thought I was offering something good for you.
right,
Come to church
right.
more.
You should, it would be good for you to come to church more, holding up the standard. But then just even holding it up, people are, react against
Yes.
it, which is kind of what you're saying
Yes.
with these young adults, that even having a standard in our day and age, people are going to take offense to.
Yeah.
Because now you're telling me what to do. And,
Yeah.
And,
Or make me feel bad if I don't uphold the standard.
and so then the church reacts in all sorts of ways. Some of us, back away entirely. I don't want to make you feel bad.
Right.
Like that's really another story, but it seems like that's people's ethic. Is I don't make people feel bad. That's my ethic,
Yeah.
which I think is not a Christian ethic. But
Yeah, we're going to make people uncomfortable if we're truly Christian.
Right.
Jesus made a lot of people
so
uncomfortable.
you take away the standard, and then people, they do decide for themselves what's right and wrong, and they learn the hard way that some of these things that Jesus lifted up as a good way to live actually is a good way to live.
Yeah.
And makes your life better. And if you break that and you go your own way, your life will be worse. It will hurt. You'll get hurt. Other people will get hurt. And so but it's tricky to figure out how to hold up a standard in a way that doesn't become beating people over the head with it, but also doesn't become, the big word is antinomialism, where it's like there's no law, anarchy.
Right,
People just
right.
you do whatever you want and just, come
But
up
that-
with your own ethic.
Sorry. That kind of gets back to, I think, are we going to be doormats? We hold up the standard, and people sling stuff at us.
Yeah.
So that to me is a little bit of the difference. I don't know, maybe it's too idealized, but so we can hold it up and say, going to church only twice a month is not the healthiest thing for you. Well, you don't get to judge me, blah, 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 blah. Okay, why is this so upsetting to you? Kind of thing. That's
And part of
fine.
it's because they've been hit over the head in the past, probably, or somebody has that they know. And so
Right,
they're
right.
reacting against that. But
But that is a place where I feel like that's where we can take it. If people are upset with the standard that we hold,
Right.
why? How can we help heal? How can we help you see this differently? Rather than remove the standard or beat them with it. We don't have to do either of those things.
Right.
like one standard I lift up is that sex should be reserved for marriage, that's the healthiest place for it, right? But that is completely countercultural. Right? That is like people will take offense at that or call it naive or think it's silly. But then I'll watch people's lives and I'll say, there's regret that they carry with them their whole life, or there's hurt, or there's, relationships that got too enmeshed before they were ready, because they didn't have the commitment or whatever.
But you're not policing people's bedrooms.
Right. And I'm not preaching that either. I'm not like, pointing fingers and saying that person's wrong.
Right.
But, if asked, I would say, I think this is the right thing and generally is going to make your life better if you follow it.
Right.
But like, even like the way I just said that, like I'm super soft and caveat. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I
Right.
do think this is good for you. It's like vegetables are good. I know they taste bad sometimes, but they're good for you.
Right. And there's a lot of scriptures that do. They make us feel bad, and then we wonder if we had gone that route, maybe my life wouldn't have had missteps, or maybe it would have gone smoother, or maybe God does know better than me. And that's some humility. That's some humble pie to eat all the time, is when I come to the scriptures and I think, oh, well, I haven't lived my life like that. Maybe if I tried it, maybe things would.
Right? There's some things like love your enemy. Well,
Gosh, hard.
That's really hard, except that when you do it, like I've had some experiences recently where I've tried to love my enemy, and like my enemies are maybe people who bug me, annoy me. They're not like at my door with a knife or anything. But, so I've interpreted that in my life to say, take a step toward them instead of a step away. Don't, instead of kind of just deleting them from your life, which would be easy to do.
Oh, yeah.
Keep them in your life, keep in conversation with them, and then like some of these people have turned out to be friends, and there's been really cool surprises that have come
Right.
away. And then, you find yourself thinking, oh, Jesus kind of knew what he was talking about.
Right.
Like there are some of these things that sound difficult, sound naive, or you're going
Right.
to be a doormat or whatever. But when you practice them, you get to see the benefit. But some of you have to see the benefit by doing it.
Yeah.
Same with like turning the other cheek,
Yeah.
like someone cuts you off in traffic, the temptation is to cut them off, or to,
Get into full road
or
rage.
to hit your brakes until they tailgate you and then try to pass you and then speed up in front of them, right? And you get in this whole tit and tat, and that's
yeah.
not turning the other cheek. But if you turn the other cheek and you say,
Yeah.
I'm not going to retaliate to this thing that they did to me.
Right.
I don't think that makes you a doormat. I think it probably keeps you and them safe and gives people space to calm down and live a better life. But it's those kinds of things where Jesus has taught us stuff that they're worth following and they're worth teaching, and not in a way to condemn people, but in a way to encourage people toward a good life, a thriving life. And that's the claim of the Christian faith, is that this is actually the best way to live
Right.
when it's actually lived, which is rarely done. But,
Right.
at least we aim for it. At least we try.
Right. A Christian ethic, how to live. It's a tough topic, but hopefully we've brought some enlightenment to
I don't
it.
know.
No, I don't know, but there's always chance for future discussion.
It's
Yeah.
messy.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. We want this podcast to go on for seasons and seasons. Maybe we'll do ethics part 2.
And 3 and 4.
Yeah. But I think to kind of summarize, it's that you really do have to go to the scriptures yourself. You need to look at what Jesus did. You need to consider them for your own life. And then when it comes to the national scale, you need to not get to the extremes. You can't make it into a nationalism that instills a law for anybody, and that goes to the extremes of social justice too. I've seen some churches turn so social justice oriented that they lose the gospel too. And so to kind of keep center in the scriptures and in what Jesus said, and it's hard to interpret biblical ethics to a modern age, but we do our best.
Yeah. Do it in community, do it in faith, and focus on love. And
Love God, love your neighbor. If Jesus can say it, we'll end there too.
Yep,
like
that's
that.
a good ending. Yep.
All right. See you next week.